First up, let's talk about some fighting styles that are popular in the United States. So the first one is boxing. And boxing is a fighting style where you can only use your fists. So these are your hands, right? If you close them, now it's called a fist. So hand, fist. So you can only fight with your fists. And in boxing, people will wear boxing gloves. They fight in a boxing ring. So it's kind of funny. The shape is a square. It's a square, but we call it a ring. So I don't know why. Usually rings are round, right? But this kind of ring is a square. Don't worry about it. English doesn't make sense sometimes. And then in a boxing ring, there are 4 corners. So the different fighters will set up at a different corner. Now, boxing ring and boxing, your corner, we'll use these words later when we talk about idioms, okay? And so boxing is like a really popular sport in America. I was never really into it. It's not a very consistent sport. So some sports like hockey and baseball, they're on TV almost every day. And then sports like football are on TV almost every week. Boxing is less common, but if there's a big fight, a lot of people in America will watch it on TV. And maybe they pay money to watch it. And so maybe each year there might be 1 or 2 really big fights that lots and lots of people will watch. I don't really watch it, but I know it's popular. When there's a big fight, people go crazy. We talked a little bit about exercising in the past few weeks. And so one good way of exercising is something called shadow boxing. Maybe you don't want to do real boxing because it's too scary, but you could try shadow boxing. And the idea is you're boxing with your shadow. So you're just throwing punches. It's good exercise to raise your heart rate, meaning make your heart move faster, make your heart beat faster. And it gets a little bit of upper body workout. So shadow boxing is pretty popular. And some people exercise by hitting a punching bag. So shadow boxing and punching bags, they're good exercises, good ways to work your upper body. Because I know a lot of us, maybe we get our exercise from riding a bike or running, and you don't get enough upper body exercise, right? So yeah, maybe you could try shadow boxing once in a while. Now, another popular sport in the United States is MMA. This is super popular. Again, I'm not really interested in this. I'm not a big fan of fighting sports. It's a little too scary for me, but this is incredibly popular in America. MMA is short for mixed martial arts. So martial arts, I think we talked about this in our lessons. Martial arts means fighting styles. So like Kung Fu is a martial art. Karate is a martial art. Taekwondo is a martial art. And so in boxing, you can only box. You can only use your fists. MMA is mixed, meaning that you can do anything. You can do anything as long as you don't really hurt the other person and do anything that's really bad. So it's called mixed martial arts. So mixed fighting styles. And this has become really, really popular in the US. And the mixed is often a mix of kickboxing. So boxing is fists, kickboxing is fists and kicks, right? And then it's a mix of that and also real wrestling. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about wrestling, which is entertainment. But here in in MMA, they do real wrestling. I call it real because they're actually fighting. They're trying to hurt the other person. And so wrestling is like you grab the person, you throw them, you roll on the ground, you hold their head, all this crazy stuff. So MMA. And then you might hear about something called UFC, which is short for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Nobody really says that. They just say UFC. UFC is kind of like the NBA is for basketball. Basketball has the NBA. MMA has the UFC. Kind of like baseball has the MLB. MMA has UFC. So it's a big league for this kind of mixed martial arts. And these people, it's kind of like boxing where they'll have huge events and they have a season in a league. And what's special about this is they fight in a ring that is an octagon. Octagon. Which is a shape that has 8 sides. Am I too noisy for my neighbors? So an octagon is a shape that has 8 sides, and they fight in an octagon. So maybe you might hear people talk about people fighting in the octagon. Okay? And yeah, so MMA and UFC are really popular. And UFC even has like video games made about it. That tells you how popular it is. It's popular enough for people to spend millions of dollars to make a game and people to spend millions of dollars to buy that game, right? So, pretty incredible stuff. Now, boxing and MMA are like real fighting. And then another kind of fighting that's popular in America is wrestling. So this is called professional wrestling. And it's a sport, but it's more entertainment than sport. Because they call it wrestling, but it's actually a performance. So these people aren't really, well, they're really fighting, but they're not trying to win. They're not trying to hurt each other. What professional wrestling means is they have a show. They usually have a story. All of the people are characters, so they're not being themselves. And then they have a fight. And the fight is fake. It's not real. It's all for show. It's all for fun. And they do these crazy things like jumping on each other, doing flips, kicking each other, hitting each other. And it's pretty ridiculous. The thing about this kind of wrestling is that if you understand that it's a show and it's not supposed to be real, it can be kind of entertaining. I'm not a fan, but I can understand why. The people are super athletic. They do incredible stuff. And it's very impressive. And it can be really funny, too, because they have these stories that are just ridiculous. And the thing about it is they're doing these amazing, scary, powerful fights, but they're not really hurting each other, or they're trying not to. So if someone tries to punch me, they go, ooh, and they stop right before punching me, and they slap their leg to make the punch sound. And sometimes they pick somebody up and throw them, but they throw them in a way that they land and they don't really get hurt. And so if you ever watch this, it's pretty funny. It's impressive what they can do, but it can be funny because it's like, wow, this is definitely fake and kind of ridiculous. And so, yeah, for example, like in a real fight, would anybody ever let someone pick them up over their head, stand for 2 minutes and talk, blah, 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 and then throw them? No, that would never happen in a real fight. And then, so in wrestling, the biggest company that does this is called the WWE. And they used to be called the WWF. It's very hard to say. WWE, WWF. Blah. But anyways, the WWE has been around for forever, like 40 years or something like that. And there's a new league called AEW, which if you're interested in seeing some of this ridiculous stuff, just go on YouTube and search for a couple fights. It's actually kind of entertaining because it's so ridiculous. And one thing that's fun about wrestling is sometimes people will have a gimmick. A gimmick is kind of like a special, funny thing that people do. Like maybe you have a friend who always wears a hat. That might be their gimmick. Something they're doing to make them interesting or fun. And so a lot of these wrestlers will have gimmicks, like a special, silly, funny thing they do to make their fights more interesting. This guy over here, his gimmick is he's very lazy. And so he's in a big fight with this other strongman, but he is not trying very hard. And so what he does is he puts his hands in his pockets, and he keeps his hands in his jean pockets for the whole fight. And so he's jumping and kicking with his hands in his pockets, showing that he's lazy. So that's his gimmick for the fight. And it's just silly and ridiculous. So this is incredibly popular in the United States. But I think most of the fans, most of the people who like it, know that it's fake. It's more of like entertainment and story and watching their crazy tricks and stuff. Okay? Now, what else do we have? Now, another kind of wrestling that I've never watched on TV or anything, but is pretty interesting, is called Lucha Libre. Now, this is just like the other kind of professional wrestling. It's all a show. It's all for fun. It's all for the crowds. But it comes from Mexico. So Lucha Libre is this kind of wrestling, but what's special about it is their costumes and their masks. And so a lot of them wear these crazy masks, and I don't know, kind of entertaining. When I went to Mexico, there were a lot of these masks for sale, and a lot of people bought them as souvenirs. So pretty fun. Okay, now let's move on. Oh, sorry. One more thing about popular sports. So boxing, MMA, and wrestling are the big sports that people watch on TV. But there are other fighting sports that people will learn in the West, in the United States. And so these four are some of the most popular ones. So karate. This is from Japanese, so it should be karate. But in American English, we take the word and change it into American style. We say karate. So karate becomes karate. So a lot of people in America learn to do karate when we're little. I took karate classes when I was in elementary school, maybe for 3 years, I think. And you get different belts. You start as a white belt, and then you get a yellow belt and move up from like blue, purple, green, and then a black belt is the best. So if you ever hear someone's a black belt, be careful. Okay. Another one is Taekwondo. This comes from Korea. In Korean, I believe it's Taekwondo. But again, we change it to American style and we say Taekwondo. So karate, Taekwondo. Sounds kind of funny in American style English. And then these other two come from Japanese as well. Judo is a sport that's mostly about throws. So you're not trying to hurt the person and hit them. You're trying to throw them. So maybe it's a little bit more of protecting yourself. Oh, sorry. Karate is a lot about punches, a little bit of kicking. Taekwondo is mostly kicking, I believe. Judo is about throwing people. And then this one is called Jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is kind of like that real wrestling that I was talking about, which is trying to like get your opponent on the ground and hold them. So a lot of the people in MMA will do Jiu-jitsu, which is Japanese style of putting people on the ground. Okay. Let's see. That is a really big show. What are you commenting on? 5 minutes ago. Maybe wrestling. Really big show. Yeah, they're crazy big shows. I'm not sure what you're commenting on. That's okay. So these four, karate especially is really popular for kids to learn. And then Taekwondo, Judo, and Jiu-jitsu, a little bit. Not super popular. Okay? Now, next up, I want to talk about some idioms, some phrases that come from fighting. So maybe you're not really interested in watching fighting, but a lot of words and sayings come from fighting, and so you need to understand the sports to understand the words.